Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam. This is very nice. If one can understand the principles of appearance and disappearance of God, His activities, simply by understanding these principles, he will be liberated. It is said here that after quitting this body, he is no more coming to take birth again in this material world. So, just like a layman does not know how the sun appears and disappears, but an astronomer, he knows very well the movements of the sun, moon and other planets, appearance and disappearance. This is a science, astronomy. Similarly, there is a science of God by which you can understand how God appears, disappears, how He acts, how He works. Everything is there. But if you are not interested, that does not mean that this science of God is false or there is no such science. There is. You must be interested to know. Then you can understand. And if you simply understand this science, then you become liberated. You open out. Simply by understanding, even not engaging yourself in transcendental service of the Lord, simply by understanding the process of appearance and disappearance. So why don't you try that? Go on, purport.
Purport. The Lord's descent from His transcendental abode is already explained in the 6th verse. One who can understand the truth of the appearance of the personality of Godhead is already liberated from material bondage, and therefore he returns to the kingdom of God immediately after quitting this present material body. Such liberation of the living entity from material bondage is not at all easy. The impersonalists and the yogis attain liberation only after much trouble and many, many births. Even then, the liberation...
Try to understand bondage. What is bondage? We are thinking we are free. We are declaring that we belong to the free nation or free community, or everyone is seeking after freedom. But nobody is free. Nobody is free. Everyone is under the stringent laws of nature. So bondage means to remain under the condition of material laws. That is called bondage. Just like people are trying for so many years to go to the moon planet. The Russian and the American scientists are competing. But they are so bound up that go some, say, thousands and thousands of miles off, again come back. Just see how they are bound up. You cannot go. So, this is the nearest planet, and there are so many other planets also. So you cannot go by your whims or by your will. This is called bondage. But if you become free when you are in spiritual understanding, then you are free, then you can travel anywhere. The perfect yogi, he can travel in any planet. That is freedom. That is little freedom. We have no idea what is the freedom of the spirit soul. That we have forgotten. Because from time immemorial we have been bound up under the laws of material nature. So we do not know what is freedom. But there are information of the freedom, how a spirit soul can become free. Go on.
The impersonalists and the yogis attain liberation only after much trouble and many, many births. Even then, the liberation they achieve, merging into the impersonal Brahmajyoti, the effulgence of the Lord, is only partial, and there is the risk of returning again to this material world. But the devotee, simply by understanding the transcendental nature of the body and the activities of the Lord, attains the abode of the Lord after ending this body, and does not run the risk of returning again to this material world. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that the Lord has many, many forms and incarnations. Advaita Chitya Nanta Rupam. Although there are many transcendental forms of the Lord, they are still one and the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. One has to understand this fact with conviction, although it is incomprehensible to mundane scholars and empiric philosophers. As stated in the Vedas, Iko Divo Nityalinuracto Bhakta Yapirdi Antaratma. The one Supreme Personality of Godhead is eternally engaged in many, many transcendental forms, in relationships with his unalloyed devotees. This Vedic version is confirmed in this verse of the Bhagavad Gita, personally by the Lord. Anyone who accepts this truth on the strength of the authorities of the Vedas and of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who does not waste time in philosophical speculation, obtains the highest perfectional stage of liberation.
Yes, this is very important point. The process of understanding knowledge, the modern tendency is to understand by dint of one's sense perception. That is not possible. There are many things, especially spiritual matter, nobody can understand by simple speculation. So one has to accept the authority. So according to Vedic culture, the Vedas are the authority. If there is some information in the Vedas, you accept it. Authority. That is very nice system. Just like a child. If he wants to understand something out of his own intelligence, it is very difficult to understand. But if he asks his parents, Mother, what is this? Mother says, my dear child, this is this. So he understands immediately. Because mother is the authority. Mother will not cheat the child. Similarly, those who are liberated persons, Vedas means the knowledge given by the liberated person, by God. So if you accept it, then you get the knowledge immediately. You haven't got to make research or philosophical speculation. That process is a deductive process. That process is very nice. So Vedic process means, as it is stated in the 4th chapter, it is that Evam parampara praptam, by disciplic succession, if you try to understand the truth, then you get infallible knowledge. Your purpose is to get knowledge. As soon as you get the knowledge from authority, your knowledge is perfect. But if you want to get the knowledge by your own sense perception, you will never be able to come to the right conclusion, neither it is possible to get knowledge in that process. Go on.
The Vedic version, Tattvamasi, is actually applied in this case. Anyone who understands Lord Krishna to be the Supreme, or who says unto the Lord, you are the same Supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead, is certainly liberated instantly, and consequently his entrance into the transcendental association of the Lord is guaranteed. In other words, such a faithful devotee of the Lord attains perfection, And this is confirmed by the following Vedic assertion. Tvam meva vitikva atimritam iti nanya pata vidyate anyanaya. One can attain the perfect stage of liberation from birth and death simply by knowing the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no alternative means, because anyone who does not understand Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is surely in the mode of ignorance. Consequently, he will not attain salvation simply, so to speak, by licking the outer surface of the bottle of honey, or by interpreting the text of the Bhagavad Gita according to his own mundane scholarship. Such impaired philosophers may assume very important roles in the material world, but they are not necessarily eligible for liberation. Such puffed up mundane scholars have to wait for the causeless mercy of the devotee of the Lord. One should therefore accept the principle of Krishna consciousness with faith and knowledge, and in this way one can attain the perfection of life. 10. Being free from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me, and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified, and thus they all attained transcendental love in me. Purport. As described above, it is very difficult for a person who is too materially affected to understand the personal nature of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Generally, people who are attached to the bodily concept of life are so absorbed in materialism that it is almost impossible for them to understand how the Supreme can be a person. Such materialists cannot even imagine that there is a transcendental body which is non-perishable, full of knowledge and eternally blissful. In the materialistic concept, the body is perishable, full of ignorance, and completely miserable. Therefore, people in general keep this same bodily idea in mind when they are informed of the personal form of the Lord.
Yes. When we try to impress people about the personal nature or the personal body of God, generally we think God is a person like me. Therefore, they cannot imagine how actually God is not a person like me, but He is a person. That is to be understood. Satchidananda Vigraha. He has got body, but He hasn't got body like me. Just like in the Vedas, it is stated, apanipada javanagrihita. In the Upanishad it is stated that God has no leg, but He can run faster than any one of us. Now, this is superficially contradiction. If He has no leg, then how He can run faster than me? So, the adjustment is that He has got leg because He runs. Just like in another place, God has no hand, but He can accept whatever we offer. There are many such Vedic versions. Now we have to understand in this way that He has got His hand, He has got His leg, but not this limited hand and limited leg. In another place in Bhagavad Gita you'll find God says that whatever is offered to me in the group of flowers, fruits, vegetables, I accept for eating. Now, if we think that God is far, far away, how He eats, I offer here, how He eats, that means His eating process is different. He can eat even from millions and millions of miles away. These things have to be understood. That God has got a form, but that form is not exactly our form. If we try to understand God's form as limited as our form, then we will misunderstand. In the Brahma Samhita it says, Satchidananda Vigraha. His form is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. Just exactly opposite to this form which we have got just now. We can also attain that form. That is being explained here. Go on.
Therefore, people in general keep this same bodily idea in mind when they are informed of the personal form of the Lord. For such materialistic men, the form of the gigantic material manifestation is supreme. Therefore, they imagine that the supreme is impersonal. And because they are too materially absorbed, the concept of retaining the personality after liberation from matter frightens them. When such materialistic men are informed that spiritual life is also individual and personal, they are afraid of becoming persons again, and so they naturally prefer a kind of merging into the impersonal void. Generally, they compare the living entities to the bubbles of the ocean, which merge into the ocean. That is the highest perfection of spiritual existence attainable without individual personality. This is a fearful stage of life, devoid of perfect knowledge of spiritual existence. Furthermore, there are many persons who cannot understand spiritual existence at all. Being embarrassed by so many theories and by contradictions of various types of philosophical speculation, they become disgusted or angry, and foolishly they conclude that there is no supreme cause and that everything is ultimately void. Such people are in diseased conditions of life. Some of them are too materially attached and therefore do not give attention to spiritual life. Some of them want to merge into the supreme spiritual cause, and some of them disbelieve in everything, being angry at all sorts of spiritual speculation out of hopelessness. This last class of men take to the shelter of some kind of intoxication, and their effective hallucinations are sometimes accepted as spiritual visions. One has to get rid of all three stages of attachment to the material world: the negligence of spiritual life, fear of spiritual personal identity, and the concept of void that underlies the frustration of life. To get free of these three stages in the material concept of life, one has to take complete shelter of the Lord, guided by the bona fide spiritual master, and follow the penances of disciplinary and regulative principles of devotional life. The last stage of such devotional life is called Bhava, or Transcendental Love of Godhead. According to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the science of devotional service, in the beginning, one must have a preliminary desire for self-realization. This will bring one to the stage of trying to associate with persons who are spiritually elevated. The next stage is that one becomes initiated by an elevated spiritual master, and under the instruction of the spiritual master, the neophyte devotee begins the process of devotional service. By execution of devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master, one becomes free from all material attachment and attains steadiness and self-realization, and acquires a taste for hearing about the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. This taste leads one further forward to the attachment for Krishna, for Krishna consciousness. And this Krishna consciousness is matured in Bhava, or the preliminary stage of transcendental love of Godhead. When the devotee reaches the stage of real love for Godhead, it is called Prema, the highest perfection of life. In the Prema stage, there is a constant engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So, by the slow process of devotional service, under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, one can attain the Bhava stage, being freed from all material attachment, from the fearfulness of one's individual spiritual personality, and from the frustration of voidness. And when one is actually free from such lower stages of life, one can attain to the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
That's
Thank you.